Hey everybody, welcome to THS Discourse. And yes, you're not imagining it. I was trying to do the
Imogen.
Imogen. Yeah, you're not imaging it. No, I can't. It doesn't work. We are on twice. Kind of gives you feels from last year when we did 2 nights a week, didn't Nate?
Yeah.
It was fun doing that last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2 shows a week.
Had to cover a lot of ground, but we didn't have anything going on.
No, we really didn't. We had the pandemic going, and it was for me it was a good coping mechanism. Being able to hang out with you guys, doing the podcast, and doing some of the commentaries. Good times.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of commentaries, we're going to be doing one next week, I believe, right?
I believe so. What are we doing? Night of Creeps?
I think it's Night of the Creeps, and that's a favorite of mine from the 80s. A fun movie, and I think it had there's a lot of that movie that inspired Slither, and who doesn't love Slither? It's a fun movie. But if you can see, we are just shy a couple of fellas. They'll be here shortly. Good old hello.
Hey, everybody.
But if you're new here, hit the subscribe button, please, on YouTube. We have 672 subscribers. We're on our way. But we really do appreciate everybody who does subscribe and follow and watch along. Anyway, Seth and Jared will be here shortly. This is Mr. 28 Nates Later. Brilliant, by the way. I was trying to think of something. I guess I could have been 20 Rays later, I guess. Right? Yeah. 28 Rays later.
You're closer to it than me.
Really? Hold on. I'm gonna change my name too, just to be fun. And because 28 Seths later, no, it doesn't work as well. Yeah, you're right. I am closer to it. Oh yeah, my name rhymes with day. What the hell's wrong with me? I should do it with the Z to make it extra cool. There we go. 28 Rays later. Nice. Hey, did I ever tell you that the second option for a name for me was Nathan? Ever tell you that? Yeah. My mom's number one option was Nathan, but my dad overruled because he wanted a third. So that's how I became Ray and got made fun of profusely as a child. So as you might know, as you may not know, we are talking about 28 days later tonight. And 28 weeks later, which I got to tell you, man, I watched both of them. It's been a long time for me since I watched them. And part of the reason, and Nate clarified it for me, was my Blu-ray I bought looked like shit. It looked like complete crud. Now I'm like, what the hell? Why does this look so bad? Nate tells me it's because of the camera they used. And so that makes up for it. Because I was watching, I was like, this could be a really beautiful movie, but it's so grainy, and it really doesn't take away too much of the beauty.
No, the 28 Days Later was actually one of the very first mainstream movies to be shot digitally, not on film. And the reason there were a lot of reasons why they used the digital. They used the Canon XL1, which actually was what my first film was shot on. It was an inexpensive. They could run multiple cameras. It's handheld. When you're using film and 35 millimeter and all that, it takes a lot of time to set up a shot. Well, they were shooting in England in downtown areas where they only had like a small window. The police would only give them a small window to get those shots of Cillian Murphy walking around. And so if they had shot on film, it would have taken forever. They wouldn't have been able to get it. So they could get like 6 cameras going with the XL and get like everything they needed in like 20 minutes. And it was just like they were all to go. And also he thought that the film, the nature of the film, like it's video. So we see so much on video, like video cameras and surveillance cameras and things like that he said just gives it a different urban, more, I don't know, just, and because you can handhold it and get in there with the actors and all that. He said it's almost like acting like you're one of the survivors with them. It's a very intimate movie. A lot of shots are close. You're right in there in the action, and they would have multiples to the point where like Christopher Eccleston was like saying, you never even knew where the camera was because you don't know if it's a wide or a close up or whatever because they've got multiple. So you just had to be on your game, and it just brought this intensity to it. And the other thing that camera could do was it could shoot like normal film shoots at like 24 frames per second. So every second you're seeing 24 different images. frames, and this camera could shoot up to 1,600 frames per second. So if you notice, like when they show the infected, it seems like it's very like frantic and choppy and crazy. It's because they're shooting it at high frames per second, so it gives it kind of this, like every other frame is kind of missing or something. And they shot all of the infected that way, and then he also shot Jim at the end of the movie in the third act where he's going through attacking the army guys. He shot Jim the same way to fool the audience to make them think that he might be infected, or because that's part of it. So there was a lot of choices to it. So yeah, it was a very different looking film. I mean, just from the get go, a lot of it is that camera and the choices that he made as far as look and what they could accomplish on a minimal budget. So yeah, it's yeah.
They did a good job because it's a very epic looking movie, and in its scale alone, I was watching it the other night. I'm like, man, they must have had to shut down a lot to get these shots. I mean, because they show a torn up England, from, was it London? Were they in London in the beginning of the movie? Did he wake up?
I'm not familiar with England. I mean,
I know they go to Manchester.
We see Big Ben. So they're so they had short windows to stop traffic. They did a lot of stuff in the early morning, which probably get that sunrise kind of shots.
You could definitely see that. And you know what it made me think about was Night of the Comet, when they had to, I think they filmed on Thanksgiving or the Sunday after Thanksgiving, early morning LA, just to get the shot when nobody was out. It kind of gave me that idea when I was watching. I was like, I wonder if they should film this like Night of the Comet, early in the morning, nobody's out, Scott Montgomery asked real fast, what's our favorite foreign zombie movie?
This one?
Yeah. I mean, this one ranks up there, but Nate, you know me.
Yeah, you're an Italian zombie guy.
I love Italian zombies, and it's probably The Beyond, if you consider that a zombie movie. I love it.
For me, it's this one, or if you're talking about foreign language, I gotta go Train to Busan.
Oh yeah.
Or
it's no one other list.
Yeah. There's a few like fun, like one that I remember liking. I think it could have been Korean or it was Japanese. Maybe it was Japanese. It was called Biozombie. And it came out in like the late 90s, I think, early 2000s. I remember that was a really fun one. But yeah, Train to Busan and 20 Days Later, as far as outside of the States, are my favorites. Another thing about camera and the shooting, 28 Weeks Later was shot mostly day for night. So they shot a lot of those scenes during the day for the young boy. They couldn't work him at night. And because the town was supposed to be abandoned, they couldn't shoot at night, because what would happen if you're shooting a city at night? You're gonna have all those electricity. You're gonna have lights everywhere. So the way they could fake it was so everything in this film, and it's in the sequel, that is, shot during the day.
Yeah, they usually have strict rules for children shooting, and it's amazing that they're able to capture that and go back and change to make it look like night. But
so you kind of add blues, and you take the saturation down.
Yeah,
so everything comes almost black and white.
Scott says, "Let Sleeping Corpses Lie" or "The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue." That's a good one too. 1974. Looks like Sethi is here. Sethi, you ready? Give me a thumbs up, or not a thumbs up if you're ready. Give me the old middle finger. Can you hear me? Anyway, so man, I got to tell you, watching these movies again, I really think I enjoy the second one. There's Seth right there. Seth, you here? You hear me? You're frozen?
Yeah.
There he is. Okay. But anyway, I really enjoyed the sequel more this time around than I did. And I think I might prefer it to the but you can't have the sequel without the original.
No. Yeah, but, I think they're just as good as each other.
They could be. I mean, as far as quality of film, story and everything and characters, yes, totally. But everybody has preferences. I think I might prefer that Robert Carlyle. The beginning of that movie, I'm jumping way ahead, but it's so intense. I forgot how intense that is with him running, getting into the boat, all the stuff in the water. Just it had me in the edge of my seat, and I've seen this movie before. So
I used to say, I mean, some people argue it's not a zombie film, but I used to say I felt that the 20 Days Later is arguably the best acted, possibly directed zombie film up to that point. Like, and with respect to Romero, Romero's great storytelling, great filmmaker, but the acting in 20 Days Later, Cillian Murphy and Brendan Gleeson and Naomi Harris, Christopher Eccleston. I mean, they were just so strong. And Danny Boyle is just one of the great filmmakers. I mean, this is a guy that's made Oscar-winning films or Oscar-nominated films. And I was floored by it. And this movie was the movie that lit a fire under my horror fan ass in 2003 when it came out here, because I saw it in theaters. And honestly, like, I probably wasn't that excited about a horror movie since Blair Witch. So you're talking, 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
Blair Witch had been the last movie where I was excited, but this movie just kind of, because the only thing zombie going on at this point was the Resident Evil games and maybe the film. I think the first film may have come out.
First film came out in 2000, I believe. But back to what you're saying about 99 Blair Witch to this, there is that lull we talk about from 99 to 2003. Go ahead.
Yeah, because you had the J horror thing kind of took over a bit. You had the Grudge and the Ring. That's kind of where things were going at that time frame. But when 20 Days Later came out over here in 2003, also the Walking Dead comic book came out that year. And then, like I said, next year you had High Tension, and then Dawn of the Dead and Shaun of the Dead, and you kind of had So the zombie boom happened after this movie.
Yeah.
And whether people want to acknowledge it or not, to me, this movie is a zombie film. It was inspired by zombie films. I mean, he pulled, Alex Garland, the writer, pulled scenes straight from Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, every time I watch it, I'm like, well, they stop for gas, and one character goes into a restaurant and gets attacked by a child.
Yep, exactly. I was thinking about that the other day. Yeah,
they go on a shopping spree, and there's fun music going on, like in Dawn of the Dead. And Invasion of the Triffids was the other big influence on the film, like a character waking up in the hospital after the whole shit has happened.
I mean, The Walking Dead straight up stole that.
I don't think The Walking Dead did, because people said that, but they came out, 20 Days Later didn't come out to the States until maybe a few months before The Walking Dead first issue came out. And but damn well, you can't make a comic book that quick, get it made, get it published, get it,
that's
get it out. So I think it was just parallel thinking. Or again, they took it. I mean, they took it straight from Invasion of the Triffids, which is from the '60s. So it's all relative.
The Walking Dead came out in October, and that's actually when I saw 20 Days Later. And then you go back to that scene where they go to the military, and you got Rhodes and his crew there, basically. And Christopher Eccleston being Rhodes in a way. It's a little bit calmer. But, you see a lot in that. And the scene that really kind of perked my attention up was when Cillian Murphy, what was his name in the movie?
Jim,
when he walks into that and there's the kid and all that shit. And it's that's really, I'm like, that's like Dawn of the Dead, almost exactly like Dawn. That's fantastic. And oddly enough, for Dawn of the Dead, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere that Zack Snyder was influenced by this on his Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, so, definitely. It started that running zombie trend, because I think that's what Alex Garland went, because Alex and Danny made The Beach before this. It was Alex.
Oh my God, that's a good movie.
Yeah, Alex had written the book, and that was based on. And then I think Alex just pitched to Danny, I have this idea for a running zombie movie that would be kind of like the Romero films, because no one was doing them. I mean, it was kind of a dead genre for a long, long time, and then it became just way oversaturated by the late
Really
2000s.
fast, too.
Yeah, where I remember doing a count. I think by like 2010 there were like 600 zombie films on Wikipedia listed in that period.
I found a graph, early days of the Horror Syndicate in 2016, and it was this graph that showed the evolution of zombie movies, and it started in '68 and went tick, and then had little ticks, and then went to 2003 and just kept rising and rising and rising. I'm like, yeah, they really have gone kind of buck wild. And they're still making a lot of zombie movies. There's still zombie movies coming out constantly. It seems like the easy way to go with independent horror. Also, you see a lot of indie zombie movies being made, like Swamp Zombies, for instance. But nothing compares to this. I mean, and you kind of start the decade of the 2000s, and we'll get into this even more whenever we do our top 25 of the 2000s. But I mean, the decade kind of slow, and then this really does kick you in the ass. I mean, like even for me, like I told you, most of the 2000s I was out of horror. This movie was the first movie I saw with my wife. Barely paid attention to it, got to be honest, because she was just too good looking and I wanted to kiss her. But we went back and saw it. I bought it immediately after I saw it because my brother-in-law just bought it, and I was like, I got to get that. It looked like a cool movie. But yeah, it kind of kicked the decade into gear, if you will. Seth, what do you think of 28 Days Later?
I love it. I saw it in theaters like at least 3 or 4 times. Came out.
Nice.
I definitely caught all the references, to Romero. That was a big thing. One of my favorite things about these movies is the score from John Murphy.
Oh yes. Oh my God.
I mean, I think the track first movie is called "In a Heartbeat." That whole end sequence is just amazing music, and then he redid that for weeks later with Donna Ben and Ellison. It's just I love the music to this movie so much.
That piece of music has got to be one of the best in cinema history. I mean, just that way it layers and builds and builds and builds.
Oh, yeah.
To the point where, especially, I love it how it builds up to Jim coming at her. I fucking love that whole, like, whatever it is, 5 minutes of film leading up to that moment. That was slower than a heartbeat. Like, it's so fucking good. And then, again, like you said, bringing it back 28 weeks later in that opening, that is some of the most intense fucking cinema just because of that music, not just because of what we're seeing, but that music on those images of Robert Carlyle running for his life and all those people come over the hill at him. It's just so, like, I dare people to find a more intense piece of cinema than that, like, with music, like, it's fucking great. You're right. I mean, John Murphy's score, I just fucking love that stuff. It's just, I love that piece of music so much.
I do too.
Go ahead, Seth. I kind of interrupted you.
You just nerded out. That's all, right?
Yeah, I just fucking love that music like he does. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm not the same way actually, because sometimes they use that that track in like other movies. Like they played in when I first watched Kick-Ass and they played it. I kind of got a little goosebumps because I'm like, oh, I love it,
Yeah.
But
They played
28 days later though, it was just. Yeah, it was the scene where they're watching what happened in the warehouse. And so it's like the way it's played with the way Nicolas Cage is kicking ass. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I think he did the score for Kick-Ass as well, right?
Did he?
He didn't. I don't think he did. They used his music from this and from Sunshine. For a couple of scenes, but they had multiple composers attached to Kick-Ass. But I think he used his track. He got credited. I could be wrong on that.
I'm looking now. He is.
But those are the tracks that I recognize.
Danny Boyle have anything to do with that movie? I know they're all British film, like Matthew Vaughn, and I just wonder if they're like all buddies or something.
I'm looking now. I don't see his name anywhere.
Okay.
No. Yeah. They're all British people are connected, though.
They all know each other, right?
They borrow each other's actors all the time. Nope. Yeah, but Murphy is credited, but I mean his beautiful piece of music that should be one of those that should be up there in horror. Period. It's have you ever like driven a car like early in the morning with that playing in the car and there's nobody out and about?
You're gonna start
I'm not
speeding
even
fast.
It's perfect. No, it's perfect. Seriously, if you're ever out in the middle of the night, like Nate, when you're driving home one night from work, just put that on. There's nobody out. There's none. The streets are empty. It fucking works for any time. I'm telling you, just try it. I love it. I do it all the time when I'm out.
I recommend the same thing once you see Drive because the Drive soundtrack makes.
You're gonna make me watch that movie. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna do a double feature. I'm gonna do Drive and Assault on Precinct 13 remake. No.
Done. I quit.
I gotta get a copy of it, man. Or no, it's streaming on HBO Max, isn't it? One of these days I'll break down because I won't have anything else to watch. Like, fine, I'll watch Assault on Precinct 13. Fine. I'll probably like it too. That's the worst part is I keep doing this and I'll probably really enjoy it, you know? Anyway, back to 28 Days Later.
I was thinking, back to that. Yeah.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say about Assault, you know, like I keep pushing you to watch it, and I feel like I'm overhyped. So now you're going to be expecting something like much better than it is.
I'm going to stop and I'm watching La Bamba again. Get this out of here. No, it's I think I know what to expect from it. It'll be fine. As long as it's not like no, anyway, 28 Days Later. Let's go back to that. We can't do Assault on Precinct 13 on here, can we? Because it's not a horror movie, really, is it?
No.
No. Well, real fast. We haven't done a John Carpenter episode, have we?
Probably.
I'll have to look in the archives. I probably should have written down every episode we've done.
I think we did. I think we might have. I don't know. Seems like we did.
It feels like something we would have done.
I think we did. I think we did a ranking, like we've been doing, where everyone submits a list and then Nate,
we did,
tallies it all up. But you know, I'm not opposed to another Carpenter episode. Saying,
like, I keep thinking that your 80s list is going to be 3, 2, 1 will be Prince of Darkness, The Fog, and then The Thing, or something like that.
He sent us his 90s list, and it was just John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, and John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, 25 through 1 in the Mouth of Madness. So anyway.
Let's talk about this. I mean, we talked about the opening, and it is a brilliant opening because, I mean, just imagine you wake up in a hospital bed and like just hell has happened, and like you're alone, and this terrifying thing where you're just like in the city of everything, and it's dead, and all this stuff's happened. You're just trying to piece together, and you go to a church, which is like, hey, that's where you go. It's like for help, and all these people are laying there, and like bodies piled up. Which a lot of the imagery and things that they inspired the film, they looked at a lot of like social unrest stuff that had happened around the world, like Rwanda and things like that. So a lot of images in the movie, like the dead mother holding the dead baby on the ground. A lot of these images of death or people were inspired by actual photographs that Danny would find of shit like this going on in the world. I guess we're kind of jumping ahead because we have that opening of the lab.
Oh yeah,
with the monkeys and the rage virus getting out, which, you know, I mean, watching it during a pandemic, you know.
Yeah.
All this,
especially the second one, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like when I went to get my vaccine shot, there was National Guard everywhere, and you had to go through all this stuff. And I remember doing that. Like, God, I felt like I was in one of these quarantine movies or pandemic movies.
Like Contagion.
Yeah, and but you know that what I like about that opening is that you have these people who are trying to do a good thing. Both of them, really. I mean, they're trying to solve a problem, or they're doing research, and unfortunately, you have to have studies and all this stuff to try to say. So they're trying to do something good. It's creating something that's bad, but also the people trying to save these monkeys are doing something that they feel is righteous and good. But sometimes when we do things that we're misguided on, but if we're doing this, it doesn't mean it's the good thing's going to happen. So like their good intentions fuck the world and into the world kind of thing almost, So like, don't go messing with things you don't understand. And, a lot of people who are activists and things like that kind of do, like, it kind of reflects that, where activism sometimes is like people acting on things they don't fully really understand the working mechanics of things or how things work. And that's what these people, like, they aren't going to listen to the scientist. He's telling them they're infected. This is dangerous. They got, and they don't listen. Like, no, this is our mission. This is what we want to do. And they just open Pandora's box kind of thing and just unleash hell on everybody. And the whole idea of the whole rage virus was a really cool thing. I think Danny said it's kind of like road rage times 10 million. Like, we're all capable of this. And that is really cool. It's like, we're not dying. We're just becoming pure aggression and anger. We just want to destroy things. We're just so angry. And that's a really terrifying thing. It's like someone, and we see people getting to anger out of control, levels of rage to where they act or do things uncontrollably. But like, what does that do? When we let anger and rage take over, bad shit happens. And like this, it's just it was a really cool, interesting take on the zombie genre. To work on biochemical or engineered viruses, a pandemic, blood virus, activism. It hits on a lot of things just in that first 5 minutes.
It's unfortunate that some people take that and take away from the zombie element for that, when it's really it's a virus. A zombie outbreak is generally it's a virus of some kind, right? And this is one of those rare movies that shows us the beginnings of the outbreak, where Diary of the Dead did it later. But that's something that I really, really enjoyed about this movie, is we get to see the origins of how this happened. You never see that. Like Romero's movies, other than Diary of the Dead, you don't know how this happened. It's just zombies, and the beginning is, I think the most intense part of the entire series, the two movies so far, is the opening of the second movie for me. But this was an intense scene. There was kind of a standoff. I got to burp really bad.
Also, that scene in Weeks where the boy, when they lock all the civilians up and the boy's trapped in there with them, and one of the infected gets in, and it's just panic and they have nowhere to run. The people are just in a crowd in the dark, and it's in there. Like, that is a terrifying sequence of just the infected spreading across this whole field of people. Because we've all been in like crowds of people at a convention or wherever, and just imagine like someone in that crowd is attacking you and will kill you if you get touched or bled on, or like you can't run away from this thing. It's like a tidal wave of illness and death coming at you.
Yeah.
That was a terrifying thing. But Seth, looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I just want to kind of go back to the zombie thing for a bit, because this is a zombie film as far as the structure goes. It's structured like a end of the world zombie movie. Mm-hmm. But we also have to consider too that what we consider zombies isn't really the true definition of zombie. Yeah. I mean, even George Romero recognized it, as he called them ghouls. Yep. And somehow through our culture, right? Somehow, we label them zombies, but they're not really the true sense of zombie.
Like the I Walk with the Zombie type zombie.
Yeah, zombies aren't really dead.
Yeah. But that's the thing too, is people say it's not a zombie movie almost as a way of discrediting it. And I think that's a shame, because it was really a reinvention. It was trying something different. Who's to say that a zombie movie as we know it to be the flesh eaters, that we saw in typical zombie movies. This is this was different. This was a rage virus that caused people to, just tear into people, rip them. You didn't see any eating of the flesh, but
they bit them.
That doesn't mean it's any less of a zombie.
Yeah, I mean there was biting going on.
You can get bitten.
Well,
what's that?
I was gonna say they were biting people, but yeah, the really cool thing about this, in my opinion, is that if you get the blood on in your system, that's it, you're done. That scene with Brendan Gleeson was phenomenal.
Right.
Oh, so fast. It's so terrifying. It could happen that easily.
Yeah.
I think it was more of a smart, more of a sort of a realistic take on what would make a zombie, stuff like that. So they had the scientific explanation of
kind of a Christopher Nolan
rage virus. Not quite. And they, and then then they have rules of, you get the blood in you, stuff like that. It was much more, I think, a realistic take than, say, Romero's, which don't offer any explanation and the rules kind of vary.
Yeah.
But
and then
I just want to point that out because.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I just want to point that out because it is a shame that people do kind of say that it's not these aren't zombie movies, but really they are, and the diction is so loose.
The haters and the Romero purists, they just have
it's gatekeeping at its best.
Yeah, it's gatekeeping. It's hard on, and I always said that. I always said this to shut those fuckers up because this is what I say. We know that Romero got a lot from Richard Matheson's book, I Am Legend.
Right.
And if you watch Last Man on Earth, it's like watching Night of the Living Dead almost. And it's 4 years before Night of the Living Dead. And what is Richard Matheson's movie about? It's about a plague. It's about a blood plague. It's about a virus getting out. And it's about vampires. But what is 20 Days Later about? It's about blood. It's a blood plague. It's they're all relative. And they all are relative to Richard Matheson's book. So they all belong in the same thing. You can't just give Romero full credit for something that he also took from other things.
Right.
So he may have invented that, but in many ways the fans invented it by calling them zombies and taking that further beyond what he even imagined it would be. But again, he got that from Richard Matheson's novel, and what's in Richard you could say that 20 Days Later is just an extension of I Am Legend as well. They all belong to that novel, in my opinion, that birthplace of it. What's that?
I Am Legend was the very first movie that I watched when I got my first HD TV in 2008. It was awesome at the time. Other than the CG, I really liked that with the Will Smith movie.
It was a good one. I still like the Vincent Price movie is still my favorite of the adaptations, but I Am Legend would have been amazing if they just stuck with the original plan to have actors and real people there instead of these cookie cutter CG guys as vampires.
They look really, really bad. They almost look quality.
I wish that they would do I know it doesn't happen very often, but a faith adaptation of I Am Legend.
Yeah, I would love to do
that story is fucking. It is so brilliant, and the revelation at the end. I mean, if you read it, you know what it is, but it's so cool because it's mind blowing. I love that book. So.
That's one of my top 5 favorite books of all time, and I would totally fucking love to adapt that thing faithfully, the way it was, because we really still haven't seen it faithfully done. I mean, all the 3 adaptations are completely different from each other.
What's the other one?
Omega Man with Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston. I forgot about that one. Yep. Yeah, that'd be really cool. I haven't read the book. We read the book in high school for a class. We were made to read the book. Not that it was a bad thing. Obviously, it's a good one. But yeah, I wonder how hard that would be. These days, they probably could pull it off pretty easily. But even back in 2008, I don't know. So let's keep going with 28 Days Later. Yeah. Because there's a lot of we got through the opening and the scenes from the beginning, and I don't know how long this takes place, but when Jim's walking the streets, he gets his baggie, he starts filling it with stuff. You know, you see a Pepsi machine that's just been completely demolished. I saw that, like, damn, they took that thing out. But like, I love that sets everything up. I mean, sure, the beginning with the monkey and the virus and all that stuff, but this sets up the world that we're in like better than any movie I've seen. Then he gets to the church.
Oh man,
And,
that church
that church scene. Whew.
When you hear that priest running up, like just coming behind that
Yeah.
door, and he bucks in, he's just standing there and he's coming at him, like it was just terrifying because we had running zombies in a few movies before this, but nothing like this to where
No.
the point where like how the fuck do you get away from this? This is terrifying. And then of course, I think we should really focus on talk about these characters because, I mean, I really do. I love Selena's character.
Well, that's what we're getting at right now. Because the thing I was going to say about that scene, other than the fact that you see this church piled with bodies and the priest, and you get to meet Selena. I don't remember the guy's name at all, but he's gone pretty fast. Yeah,
Frank or something like that.
She's a badass.
Oh, yeah,
she looks the part. She plays the part well, and she's probably my favorite character in the entire movie overall.
Yeah. Naomi Harris. I don't know why I haven't seen her. I mean, she's done other stuff, but she
was in Pirates of the Caribbean, I think. And
she's done work, but she should be far bigger than she is. She is such a good actress, beautiful actress.
Yeah,
but she does such a good job in this film.
Isn't she Moneypenny? Isn't she Moneypenny in Skyfall in Spectre, or is that someone else?
Is that her? I think you might be right.
It might be. Like she started to do more. Like she did a movie called like a body cam type cop movie a year or two ago.
She is Moneypenny.
She started to pop up more, but I just felt like we should have seen her everywhere. I mean, maybe it's just a comment on Hollywood and how they use, how they don't really cast black women. But she's incredible.
She's playing Shriek in the Venom movie. Nice.
Cool. But she's just phenomenal. And just like I read that her and Danny came up with a backstory of her why she's so cold is that she had to kill her parents to save her little brother, and then her little brother was infected. Damn. So like that whole thing.
Give me that movie, please.
Yeah, that whole thing of, you can't get close to anybody. You can't get close to anybody, and if you do, you're going to end up get yourself killed. And I will kill you in a heartbeat. I will kill you in a heartbeat. And if she learns, she opens up to, she becomes more human over the course of the film, and starts caring about people. Kind of like like that's one thing I liked about Mad Max Fury Road was that Max was at a point in his life where he didn't want to get connected to anybody because of that, because of all the haunting and all the death that the people he's lost. People he couldn't save, the people who got killed in his care, that he just like, I'm not getting involved. And he didn't want to get involved with Furiosa and the girls. So I like characters like that because even you go back to Han Solo, the reluctant hero,
reluctant hero,
doesn't want to be involved. It's not my fight. It's not my war. And she's just capable, and like he says, I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for you. So she has some inkling, of she did risk her life to save him in the very, very beginning by doing what she did. She could have just watched him get killed.
Yeah, she's got a really good character arc in the entire movie, going from that to the way she ends with Jim. And
the part that gets me is when she gets Hannah high, so she doesn't care about what they're going to do to her.
Yeah.
That is such a heavy fucking scene
that's right there. You can tell she's different.
Dope this little girl up. Like when she's like, leave her alone, take me, do whatever you want to fuck to do to me. Leave her. Don't do that to her. Don't do this to Hannah. And then when she knows that they're going to do it anyway, she's like, I got to just do something for this girl so that she doesn't even know what's happening to her. And it's just so sad and heartbreaking that she's put in that position. And it hints that she's got some kind of medical background too, I think, because the way she says when you're crashing, you need more sugar. You need, like when she's on the steps here, I've got soda. And I think she's probably the one who dresses his wounds. Reason he survives at the end. I think there's probably some kind of nurse or doctor background with her.
Jesus, I forgot that I got these pictures. Forgot all about the pictures. Anyway, yeah. And I love that scene when he's watching the home videos and the infected, as they call them in the movie, right? Bursts in and her she springs to action when the guy's arm is bleeding and he knows what's going on, but he's like, wait, and she just starts chopping, like without a doubt. Yeah, I love that about her. Like she knows she's been living in this world for however long, and
Hey, Becky.
was she a chemist?
Was she?
I don't know.
I don't remember if
She
they
liked
said
warm
anything.
soda.
Yeah,
Uh,
didn't they allude to that?
I don't
thought
recall.
they allude to that in the movie.
They might have. The other, like you talked about the when they go back to see Jim's parents and he finds them in bed having committed suicide,
Yeah,
and that note they left to "Don't wake up." God, it's like I'm just going to cry right now. It's just to read that. Like we left you sleeping. Now we're sleeping with you. Don't wake up. It's just heartbreaking. I mean, it's just a powerful fucking movie. I love Dawn of the Dead, and it's still my favorite zombie movie. But 28 Days Later is my second favorite, and I just admire this movie so much.
yeah. I mean,
I don't think it gets the credit it deserves. People don't always talk about it. And it's like almost been forgotten in some ways.
yeah, and it not that this matters, but it never does well on our brackets. We always try to get 28 Days Later in there, and it never does well for some reason. I don't know why people have such trouble going back to not calling it a zombie movie. I don't know why people have so much trouble calling it that when it really is. And
People are loyal. They're loyal to Romero.
yeah, but that doesn't make any sense. It's a
Romero
different.
comes out and says zombies don't run and all this. So I mean, if you're a Romero loyalist and you're a sheep, you just go, yeah, fuck that movie, and that's just how it goes. And if that's how they want to be, that's fun to be. But I love Romero and I love this movie.
Yeah, I do too. Hopefully there will be 20. Yeah, we 28 months later, we just kind of talked about that a little bit on our chat. But Danny Boyle and Garland, they were talking about in late 2019 about they had an idea for a third movie, and please give it to me. And even Imogen Poots said she'd be up for it. Weird name, but she was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah. Brendan Gleeson's another character. He's just an actor I like in general.
Yeah.
Everything he's ever been in, he's just a really good actor. I could watch him for hours. But the one scene that really sticks out, actually, one of the scenes that I really like is when they're doing the shopping spree, and he comes up to Jim, and Jim's got the bottle of alcohol. He's like, "Don't waste your time on that stuff." And then you're like, "Oh, he's being serious." And then he grabs, "Get this," and he stacks up with 4 or 5 bottles of whatever that was. I thought that was a good scene. Get to see a little sense of humor.
He's just so lovable of a person, like as a presence, and like the relationship he has with his daughter, and that he's doing all this but he's willing to help people. But like that just makes his death it's such a heartbreaking moment when you see that blood hit his eye and you realize, fuck, he's gonna die. And he had to die really because it would have changed that third act so much if the dad was still there with Hannah. Like it just leaves that girl fatherless, vulnerable at one of the what could have been the most horrific, other than losing her dad. She just lost her dad, and now these guys are going to rape her.
Yeah,
it's such a fucking ugly, but a very kind of it's an honest thing, but it's also really disturbing that like this is like a month after this shit's happened, and these guys are already ready to kidnap women and rape them.
I know they fell apart that fast, and they're supposed to be. Then they go to that compound, and these military guys are supposed to be their savior, and they're looking forward to their saviors, and they turn out to be pieces of shit. Maybe even worse than Rhodes. I don't know.
Oh, a lot worse than Rhodes.
Yeah.
Like they're just the most. Like
we don't know
said,
what Rhodes would have done.
They are coming to you as this false savior.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be who's taking care of you, and they're using that power to fool you into becoming basically their sex slaves. I promised them women. I mean, it's got to be one of the most terrifying sequences in a film that I don't know if I've seen something that heavy in a horror film. Like, 'cause there's a lot of shitty horror stuff. I mean, stuff in horror that's disturbing and awful. But that is, I promised them women I'm going to give this, I don't know, 14, 15-year-old girl to my soldiers, so they can cope. Because they have no future. It's just an awful idea, and
Ugly, man.
Yeah.
It's the ugliness of being in the middle of and one of the things that bugs me, to be honest, though, is like I don't know how they, like, we talked about it last night because I was curious, was it just England, was it just Europe, and by the end of the second movie you see that it was for sure, because they make their way to Paris. But like, that was one of the things I kept wondering about watching this movie. Is this contained to the one place? Like, is there no way out of this? There is. They could have gotten out of England. Really, they didn't have to stay there, did they?
They were quarantined, and I mean, realistically, it's probably because the guy ranting about it, like, says, "How can a virus across the ocean?" Well, it's the 21st century. It can we've seen it could spread very easily and quickly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've seen that last year.
Yeah, so because that's, I mean, transportation and everything. I mean, it just doesn't take any time. But that is a cool. I think originally it was. I don't know if it was planned to do that. I think Danny actually, from what I read, he stole one of the cameras, took it home, and filmed that tree shot of the plane flying overhead through the trees. Like, shot that in his backyard. I guess waiting for a plane to fly overhead. But like the original, I think Jim was supposed to die from his wound from getting shot by Henry. So I do like the original. And another thing about the camera, that last shot was actually filmed on film in 35 millimeters. So like the whole rescue thing. So it does look a little different, a little better. Oh my God, there's so much to talk about this film. I like the little girl who plays Hannah too. I don't know if she's done a whole lot since. I think her name is Megan Burns. Especially like when she's like doped up and she's talking to them, like, it's been a while, hasn't it? They're dead. Like, shut up. Like, it's and like, I love the shot going with John Murphy's music during that whole rise of In a Heartbeat, and they have that shot where she comes in that red dress, almost like floating like a ghost, and she kneels down and picks up her dad's picture up on the ground, and then she's hiding behind the mirror. But there's that shot, it's like a low angle shot of her walking into the room in that dress, and it's just like she's almost like a ballerina coming into like this beautiful, like a shot from The Red Shoes or something of her walking in this red dress. There's
one thing that I noticed about her being kind of like high on those pills or whatever, like, she was still able to act fast. Like when the infected came in the room and she hid behind the mirror.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, she was high on whatever and she was still able to act and save herself, really, because it was right up against the mirror. Yeah, she was good. And I just looked, she's only been in 3 things, and it's something called Liam from 2000. And then 28 Days Later, and something called Intruders with a 2 where the T belongs. It's a short film. But she also had a music career where she had an album called Here Lies. So, yeah, she is 34 now.
I guess we didn't talk about Killian. This is the first thing I saw Killian in.
Who's Scarecrow?
Yeah, Scarecrow. Killian, I really love him. I like him anyway. Everything he's done.
Yeah, he's a good actor.
But right away, there's just something about him that's really. It's like you knew this guy was going to be a star in some ways, and I read that actually Ewan McGregor was supposed to play Jim originally, and Ewan had worked with Danny twice or 3 times actually. I guess he did Shallow Grave, Trainspotting, and Life Less Ordinary.
I love that movie.
And they had a falling out because I think Ewan was supposed to play the lead in The Beach, and they gave it to DiCaprio, and they kind of had a falling out. And then at one point before Killian, it was going to be Ryan Gosling was supposed to play Jim, and then Gosling had a scheduling conflict. Another casting choice was Robert Carlyle was supposed to play Christopher Eccleston's part, the soldier.
Oh God, he would have been brilliant in that part. Wow.
And Christopher had been in Shallow Grave, Danny's movie with Ewan, and Christopher's great at it. I think the good thing about Christopher has a darkness to him, but he also has kind of a unassuming quality. Like Robert's got this kind of menacing kind of thing about him anyway. I guess because of like being introduced to him in Train Spotting as this kind of wild guy, and then of course Ravenous and stuff like that. But I do like Christopher in this part. What we were talking about? Did I get off on something?
I just saw this comment pop up. But we were talking about the casting of Jim, and it wasn't supposed to go to
Killian. Just Killian's got this, and I think also the way he looks physically, he looks like he could be a zombie. It's very gaunt, because he's been in a hospital bed for 28 days or more, I guess. But like when he's kind of terrifying at that last part, like the way he's moving and hunting them and moving through, which is almost a little realistic. Like, how did this guy become like a commando all of a sudden? Like, there's that whole idea that if you're pushed hard enough, a switch can flip, and that's the way I took it. He had enough. I mean, and that scene where Eccleston talks about him. Who did you kill? You had to kill somebody, and I feel like that kind of led to that because he kind of pushed him to that again. Yeah, once he had to kill that boy.
Yeah,
it was kind of his breaking point. Yeah, but I like you that pushing a character to their brink, that fighting tooth and nail to survive thing was always a theme in horror and storytelling. I really liked. Like, and Luke said, fighting for people you love and care about will kind of bring it
his
out.
His new family, really.
It's really saving the loves of his life, or what he has left of reality and love and family. But like that was a big thing, and that was a big choice. Like 28 Days Later, High Tension, Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw Remake. Like there was a return of survival horror. Kind of got dubbed torture porn, and some of it was. But those type of movies where people are put into extraordinary situations and have to fight like savages, kind of embrace their savage side of who we are deep down, to the point where Jim comes in and just bashing a guy's brains out and gouging his eyes out. But it just, I can't get added. But there's something really, again, with that music and everything, and him just running through the rain, being in the rain too, and those cameras, like I said, the frames per second. I don't know what they said, it was up to 1600 possible. So that's why, you notice the rain and when the blood splatters and all that, it's like fragmented. It doesn't look like normal film. Like if you're watching rain, it looks almost surreal and weird, the way it falls, and it's because of the frames per second they're shooting it on. It's like a slow motion kind of thing. I don't know, man. Every time I watch this movie, I just get excited about filmmaking and this film and the score. Everything about it's so wonderful. Again, it's one of those movies that's just kind of overlooked or forgotten for some damn reason. And I think you're right. I think it's just that zombie bias. The people got pissed off with the running zombies and being called a zombie movie, and it's like, just let it. I mean, there's so much to like about this film that you let these little fucking things get in your way. Just kind of, it's weird. It's weird behavior to me.
Yeah, and they shouldn't get in your way of a good movie, regardless of the rules, if you will, because I mean, look, Romero-verse has their rules. There's tons of zombie movies, and they're all different. There's no definitive playbook that says, what is a zombie movie and what's not. you know, and I think that they're infected, not dead. They run, and blah blah blah. Well, we saw Zack Snyder do a movie that was very well received with running zombies. So, you know, what are you going to do? 28 Days Later did it. Maybe not first, but and they did it really well, man. This movie was really kick ass. You know, this is as we talked about the lull before. This movie came, you know, may have been on its way to the rebirth of horror again. You know, because horror went through another lull like it did in the early '90s. You know, with a gym here and there, like in the early '90s. I was doing my '90s list earlier, and I was like, wow, '91, not much. '92, not much. You know, Candyman, Dracula.
Yeah, it really was. Like
the
death of the slashers in the '80s, and then you don't get a lot of excitement into it until Scream. Because someone posted about this last week, and I commented about it. The guy was saying that, you know, they said that Scream saved horror, and of course, there's people who don't like Scream are like, that's bullshit. That movie didn't save nothing but spawn a bunch of shit. I'm like, it wasn't that it saved the genre in terms of producing great movies. It was that it showed the studios that there was still value in this genre because horror was not profitable after Silence of the Lambs came out. Because Silence of the Lambs kind of changed how those type of stories, like they turned to thrillers and Silence of the Lambs type movies for a long while. They were still horror, but the studios weren't putting money behind it until Scream came out. Now, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, a lot of people like those films. I don't really love all of the Scream ripoffs. But Scream
Urban Legend, and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah, I mean they're not bad, but they're not Scream good, and they're not, you know, I don't consider them some of the greatest horror films ever made. Or, you know, when I look at the '90s, I'd rather go with it in the Mouth of Madness and Candyman and, you know, stuff like that rather than Valentine and
I think
I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I think Seth has In the Mouth of Madness covered for all of us.
Okay. How dare I speak of it?
Yeah, how dare you speak of it? He's going to gatekeep the shit out of that one for me. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think in a way, you know, with like Scream, I think 28 Days Later kind of brought horror back to where it needed to be in a way. I mean, think about it. Like, seriously, that lull came, and then all of a sudden a bunch of kick-ass movies came out. Not just zombie movies. We started seeing a change in horror that kind of faded out towards the end because we saw a rebirth again, like we talked about Tuesday with the 2014 It Follows, you know, and I think 28 Days Later did a lot for the genre.
Yeah, it kickstarted this, like that 2002, 2003, you kickstarted in 2004, you kickstarted the zombie boom, you kickstarted the remake boom, you kickstarted the torture porn boom, you kickstarted the French New Wave of horror. All of that kind of spawned in that mid-decade area. And I think we've been on a great run since then. I think the last 15 years or so of the genre, even though people don't agree, like you said, it's like kind of a renaissance period of horror where people talk about how bad it is. But if I go back and look at it, I'm like, God, there were so many good things made in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, I had trouble placing them. Yeah, and that's a problem, in my opinion. There was an article a couple years ago where they were calling these movies this revolution we've been talking about. They called it post-horror. It's not horror; it's post-horror. It's like, what the fuck does that even mean? You know, they're trying to make an excuse for it, and 28 Days Later was lumped in there. It's like, come on, man! That's a straight-up horror movie. That's a terrifying movie. You know, that's what horror means to me. You know, it's scary, it's terrifying, it plays with your senses, you know.
Anything else we need to talk about this one, or you want to move to 28 weeks?
Yeah, let's move to 28 weeks. We're getting close on, not too close, but we've got time to talk about 28 weeks later.
Half an hour. Yeah,
which this is one that I kind of was excited about, but I ended up waiting a while to see it. I'm gonna show some pictures because I keep forgetting about the pictures. Before we go, there you go.
Bastard.
Anyway, 28 weeks later, man. Starts off with the chase scene with Robert Carlyle, and he was great. Like that whole setup to that scene before he is being chased by, you know, and the zombies and the kid and all that stuff. Man, that was really, like, setting everything up was really cool. You know, they were trying to cope with everything. His wife was there. Like, it was great. And it just showed, like, fucking left her behind.
It's so weird. It's a hard situation because you think like, what would I
Yeah.
do? And I think a lot of people would like say, "Oh, I'd save my wife," but you don't know until like something like that. Like there was probably no hope. Like the room was
Yeah.
filling with with death basically, and it was between him and her.
Yeah.
And
It's-
what
well,
do you
it's-
do? Like
what
what
do
do you
you
do in that
do?
moment? Yeah.
You know, that's the question. In the moment, nobody knows what to do.
No.
You know,
You
and
don't
he
have
turns.
time to think.
The best part is he turns back. Here we go. He turns back, and he sees she's in the window. It's like, God, how much of a gut punch is that? He's watching her in the window, like in the window, yelling his name, and then she's pulled, out of the side of the window, so he can't see her anymore. It's like, damn, dude, how'd you do that?
It's like he's running for his life at the same time he's probably hating himself for what he's doing.
Yeah.
And regretful and knowing, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. I just left my wife to die. It's just so layered in horror.
Yeah, for sure. I mean that when I texted you guys last night, I had to pause the movie. It's like, holy shit, that opening is intense.
And then he has to face his kids to
Yeah,
tell
and
them
then
what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do they keep making Rose Byrne American? Like I watched it. I was like, is that Rose Byrne? It is. Why she's not American? Why do they do that to her? And she's in England. I mean, why are they doing that to her?
I can't remember. Was Idris was speaking with an American accent too, wasn't he?
Who?
Idris Elba.
Was he?
I think.
I don't know. I remember I lost my mind when him and Jeremy Renner both. I forgot they were in this movie, like completely. Here's Jeremy Renner right here.
There they are. He's so fucking great in this too. Like I mean, the cast is just phenomenal, and that's like these people are huge stars now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
this was before they were huge stars.
Yeah, Rose Rose had done what, like Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah, she played Dorme.
And Jeremy had played Dahmer, and he'd been in North Country. I guess was the biggest thing he'd done.
He was in an episode of Angel.
And then I think Hurt Locker was maybe a year or two after this.
Yeah, it was 09, 10, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest star at the time may have been Robert Carlyle.
He was, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, well, it was like
he'd coming off Full Monty. That was what really made Robert a big deal with the mainstream.
Yeah, he was. Well, I was going to say I'll never forget him in Trainspotting.
Trainspotting, but
for the rest of my life.
Yeah, like a lot. Not everybody saw Trainspotting.
I know.
Full Monty was like a big hit.
Trainspotting came out when I was 16 and very impressionable. So everybody, like somebody said, "Did you see Trainspotting yet?" I'm like, "What the hell is that?" Went to Blockbuster and rented that immediately. I was like, "I got to watch this," and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" But that was my first exposure to Ewan McGregor. What's his name? Simon.
I forget his name. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right? He was in Hackers and
Johnny Miller.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah. Johnny, I love him too.
And also someone I love who's in that, Kelly McDonald from No Country for Old Men.
Oh my God, yeah. She was in that show on HBO. What's it called?
She's an underrated actress.
Yeah, she's so great.
Good.
She's really pretty too.
Yeah,
I love that scene. Oh God, I could talk about Trainspotting all day. But I love that scene in the club, especially with Ewan Bremer.
like Robert Carlyle throwing his beer.
Fucking Begbie. Yeah, I love Trainspotting. Anyway, it was definitely one of my favorites from the 90s. But yeah, and seeing Robert Carlyle, man, that brought a little bit more to this movie for me when I first saw it, because I really liked him and the things I'd seen him. He was in The Beach also, and he was in a Bond movie before all this.
And such a really genius. We go back to the transmission of this, that it was a genius idea to say, how does this happen again? Well, she's immune, and he breaks in. They set it up where we're in this place. He can get anywhere, and he kisses his wife, which seems like irrational, what people would do, not even thinking. And we all know as the audience, like, oh, don't fucking kiss her. Don't kiss her. And he kisses her. And it's this heartbreaking moment where his husband reunited with his wife kissing her. And it means his death, and it means the death of so many people.
It caused, and really, I mean, it goes back to the kids breaking out of the quarantine zone,
Yeah,
and going back home because they wanted to go back home. And I get that, but my big question is, why didn't the military knew? Like, Jeremy Renner saw them. They got 2 runners. Why did they stop them sooner? I mean, if they would have stopped them sooner, none of this would have happened. I mean, we wouldn't have had a movie.
I guess they didn't reach them fast enough.
Yeah.
Or maybe they had to call special people in. I mean, they were wearing gas masks and everything. They wanted them to go in, be protected. I don't know. But just that. Let's talk about that outbreak sequence where the snipers are being forced to kill everybody.
Everyone on the streets. Yeah.
Yeah, like just shoot the infected. Just don't let anybody leave. Don't let anybody
Not
escape.
just anybody and everywhere. And then even Jeremy Renner's out there running around. I mean, he has to make that decision. Like he decides not to do it. He goes down on the street level and they're shooting at him too. So yeah, that's a really cool scene. That's a really great, like, God, there's so many tense moments in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole scene
Probably
with Robert Carlyle and his wife, that's a tense moment. Then he kisses her and you're like, oh fuck. And then that whole outbreak scene, especially with him, there's this movie's just full of tension.
Yeah. And then that scene at the end is almost like Silence of the Lambs, where they're in the dark and she's got the night scope and she's telling them where to go, and they're looking back at her and like Imogen's like fear on her face, looking back in those eyes, and like, you're fine, move over to the left. It's like this.
And they slip and fall for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
And then of course Robert Carlyle shows back up.
Yeah, which is the only this is the only part of the movie. It's the only part of the movie I have conflict with. It's still cool. I understand why, but like, it's kind of silly that he keeps following them and keeps showing up, that it comes full circle with him. Like, because like they're supposed to be mindless. They're not really. I mean, all they're thinking about is destroying and killing. Like,
yeah, but he was reinfected by somebody that maybe the infection changed. That's kind of how I took it.
It just feels like
a new strain.
Strange that he's following them, or just keeps on their path, or keeps running into them. Where, I mean, how would he know where they're at? Like, it's just
the UK variant.
It's movie coincidence.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all about emotion and everything.
Yeah, it works, but at the same time, it's just like the most. It's really stretching it part of the movie.
What about that helicopter scene?
Oh,
how awesome was that?
Oh, Harold. That's another actor I fucking love. Like, I've loved Harold. Like, there's a movie called Smoke it's one of my all-time favorite movies from '95. But Perrin Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet was also where I really fell in love with him.
The Matrix movies, wasn't he?
I don't know. Was he? I was not a big fan of that. He was on Lost. He was on the first,
2 and 3.
He was on the first few seasons of Lost. But when he played Mercutio and DiCaprio and Claire Danes, Romeo and Juliet.
That was him?
Yeah.
No shit.
He's fucking great in that. But I always liked him too. And just, yeah. This is another overlooked, forgotten movie. But like you said, you I don't know if you were excited to watch it, but then you were watching, you're like texting. It's like, this is so much better than I remember. Like,
yeah, no, I really wasn't. Like, I like 28 Days Later, fine, but I don't think I've seen 28 Weeks Later since I originally saw it when I got it on, because I bought it on a DVD without even seeing it, because I love the first one so much. But then I'm watching it and not remembering, and I saw Imogen Poots, who I like a lot. She's a good actress. And then you see Jeremy Renner, like, oh fuck, I forgot he was in this. And then you see Idris Elba, you're like, oh my god, why wouldn't he be in this? But then beyond that, Rose Byrne being an American again, of course. Beyond that, it's a really tight story. It's a good story and it's more, to me, it's way more tense. There's more tension in this than the other one. And I got to be honest, I really enjoyed the second one more than I enjoyed the first one this time around. Yeah. And I think there was, maybe it was the weight of what was going on, because those two kids possibly were the vaccine. They had the vaccine within their blood, I think the weight of it, and Jeremy Renner's sacrifice, towards the end of the movie, like, fuck, man, this movie is heavy.
Yeah, when he has to get out knowing, when he pushes that car and gets caught on fire, I read that Rose Byrne was supposed to be killed that way, that she was supposed to do that, and then he gets beat to death by Robert Carlyle, and they said it was a little more terrifying that he dies and now they're left with Rose, as opposed to having still having this badass soldier sniper
Rosie
guy.
American. Yeah, it makes it a little bit better that way, I think. And it comes right after the whole thing with the helicopter, and the best part about it is he gets in the car and says, "I'll meet you there."
Yeah.
No, no, not even close.
And then I remember the only thing about like in the trailer. Remember in the trailer they have that shot where he's pushing the car and he winks at the boy just before he gets burned up. They don't have it in the film, which I love. I got talked about the trailer for 28 Weeks Later because it's one of my favorite trailers because they use Muse's Shrinking Universe. It's such a like anytime a trailer has Muse in it. It's just fucking like all the Watchmen trailer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like it started the trend of using Muse in trailers because right after that, Zack Snyder used it for the Watchmen, and I know there's another one that has. Well, no, it was at the end of High Tension too. Muse was beautifully placed at the end of High Tension.
Newborn,
yeah.
But yeah, they like that trailer in 20 Weeks Later where it's like Idris Elba says Code Red.
Yeah.
And the sirens start going and it starts building that. You hear I forget his name. Was it Matthew, the lead singer of Muse, doing that high with that voice that guy has.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and all of a sudden you see the zombies and it's like that like that music and it's like Shrinking Universe. It's like there's something about Muse's music was always cinematic. It's a shame that it like took Twilight for them to be known and here. I mean, they were big in England.
Supermassive Black Hole.
God, that album.
Yeah.
That, Absolution.
Well, that's the song they played where they were playing baseball. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. But like the albums before, like the Absolution and was it Black Holes and Revelations or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Those two albums are just fucking wonderful.
They're a band you can listen to front to back without a problem.
Yeah.
That whole first song I ever heard was Hysteria by Muse. Anyway, actually, I guess it was Newborn because I saw
Newborn was the first. And then
I didn't know that was them until after the fact.
A friend gave it to me. Gave me Absolution, and I listened. And at first, I was like, they sound too much like Radiohead, which I loved Radiohead. But I was like, they sound too much like them. And then after a while, I was like, no, this is different. This is huge. It's like cinematic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is like big movie music soundtrack stuff.
They have their music has an iconic sound, but
and that concert they did at Wembley, I don't know if you ever saw it. They have a DVD of it. It's fucking. I kind of would have loved to have been at that concert.
Yeah, Muse is amazing.
Yeah.
Man, you're right. They're very cinematic. Their music. But anyway. Yeah, I love 28 Weeks Later more than I ever thought I would. And like after I made my list for the top 2000s, I feel like I need to push that up a little bit further. And 28 Days Later because I didn't watch that until after I made the list too. And I'm like, and I hate going off of memory sometimes, especially if I haven't seen anything in a while, because it gets put lower on my list. And that happened with 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. Otherwise, 28 Weeks Later would have been way higher on my list.
This reinstated because I liked 20 Weeks Later, and I remember feeling it was just as good. It's one of the best sequels ever made, in my opinion. And I always am like a first taste person, so I always held 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later has always been one of my favorite horror films of all time. And in that decade, it's High Tension and 28 Days Later have been my favorite two of that decade. Since I saw them, like both those movies, I saw them pretty much the same year, I think, because High Tension came out in 2003 in France. It did come out over here until 2005, but I saw like a bootleg DVD at a local video store had it, and I rented. It was like a Korean copy of it or Thailand copy of it, and so I saw it before it actually hit the States for everybody.
Yeah, because
movies kicked my ass.
I saw that High Tension the same day that I saw The Hills Have Eyes. I got to watch them back to back. Actually, it was also Hostel. I watched all three of those movies in the same weekend, which was an awesome weekend, in my opinion.
That's a great.
Really
trilogy.
Disappointed Hostel didn't make our list.
Yeah, I like Hostel, but there's just so many good films in that decade.
Which is surprising because, like, I looked at the decade when we were going, okay, let's since we did the 2010s, let's move on to the 2000s. I'm like, well, shit, the 2000s. I can't really remember anything, and my mind goes straight to Friday the 13th for some reason. I don't know why.
I mean,
like,
there's so many.
Out.
Again, you had The Descent and Wreck and let
I
the
still
right
haven't
one
watched
in.
Wreck.
And
I still haven't watched Wreck.
there's so many Inside. Like there's so many great films.
And I need to see Inside also. Those are the Wreck 2, and Inside are the 3 that I need to see. Seth, should I watch Wreck?
Yes.
Yes.
Watch 1 and 2.
Emphatically, yes. Yeah. Well, as when I saw the rankings, I'm like, God, I guess shouldn't need to watch Wreck or Wreck 2, both of them, because they're ranked so highly on the list, and they're probably should be higher on our ranking, and they're not because of me, because they're not even on my list. So maybe I'll watch them, try to break them out this weekend. I mean, I have them, so all 4 of them. Anyway, is there anything we want to say before we get going on 28 Weeks Later? Seth, you haven't shared your thoughts on 28 Weeks Later. And I guess Jared's not coming today.
Yeah, I loved it. I love sequels that have their own identity, that don't try to mimic the story structure or style of the one that came before it, which is why I'm such a huge fan of, say, even Temple of Doom. So I really appreciate.
Wait a second, but you love Halloween, and they're all the same. No, I'm just joking. Go ahead. I'm just joking.
Well, no, I mean that's true. I mean, Halloween, Friday the 13th, basically, the same. But I have a strong affection for sequels that can take themes and story and elevate it and stand on their own without copying what came before. And this is one of those movies that does that. It expands on what happened in the first one, and it's its own movie. Stylistically, it's totally different.
It's worth it's a story worth telling.
No.
Yeah, where's it? No, the ones you found in Honeydew.
And I saw 20 in
Yeah, the empty.
I have no idea who those were.
Definitely sealed me on it.
There's a control up in my room on my table, but where my TV is. I'm gonna need your help here shortly, okay?
What?
The couch.
I have a fudge box.
Yeah. Sorry.
Good,
Reynolds was talking. Did you see Reynolds? He was talking to me. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
He needed a fudge pop, by the way.
The opening scene. Oh. The opening scene really sold me on it. And, it's like what you guys are saying. That was my first thought was, we know all these people who say, well, if I was there, I would have done this. And every time I hear someone say that shit, I laugh at them because there's that presumption that you stay cool and calm and collected, but you don't know until you're in that moment. And then, human beings are very flawed. And when it comes to intense situations of fight or flight, most people choose flight.
Well, it's
and that's what he did.
Go ahead.
Oh, and I was gonna say, and that adds, and it wasn't just like that was that. Like that was a big part of the whole movie. That was the underlying theme of the whole movie, was what Don abandoning his wife and lying to his kids about it. And it was his, I guess, guilt over that, which is what led him to go for that kiss. You know what I mean? That caused the whole thing again. So, it was very important. I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I heard. I was listening to Bill Burr and Bert Kreischer talk about. I think it was them. They were talking about what we do in the moments of something like that, like when you're in a position and like you don't know, and your natural instincts are, you don't really have control of what your mind or your body will do as a reaction, because you're like, people say you can't drown yourself because your body's going to automatically not let you do that to yourself. Like, so it's like they were talking about how where people sit their kids in the car and they tell you to put the kid behind the driver, because your natural instinct, if a car is coming at you, is to turn away from it. Well, if your kid's over there and you turn away from it, put your kid in danger. So put the kid behind, because your body, without thinking,
you protect yourself.
You protect yourself. Yeah. So that's what he's doing. He's protecting himself. Like, so it's like one of these things where, like you said, people would just sit there and say, oh, what a piece of shit. But it's like, what you don't
You
know.
don't know. You weren't there.
You won't know. Like
Yeah.
you would say, I wish I would go save my wife, but at the same time, like there's also that self-preservation that sometimes you don't really have control over it until you're in it and it's there. Not everybody has a hero gene in them. Like that's like there's a certain thing where some people run to a burning building and some run away from a burning building.
And some stand and watch.
Yeah.
Most
people freeze.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, he got lucky. He didn't freeze. He reacted to the situation, and really, I mean, he didn't just react to the situation. If you really look at it, he thought about it. He took a beat and stopped and thought, can I save her? No, I need to go. And I
have my kids. That's also the thing.
Yeah,
I have kids that are about to lose both parents, but one of us has to survive. So it's just a complicated situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not black and white.
Yeah, because I think I was in that camp when I first saw the movie. That I was like, "Come on, you bitch," and by the time they got to the boat, I was like, "Come on, get him, please, just get him," And I love Robert Carlyle as an actor and everything, but I remember rooting for the damn infected to get him. But it's like watching this now again. Being a parent may have changed the way I see things, and knowing what happens later in the movie. And I might have seen his way. Like, think about it for a second. Like, I wrote a comic a few years ago that was a zombie, reacting to a zombie outbreak, and what would you do? It was the question, and my character freaks out. He doesn't know what to do, and I think that's natural. And watching Robert run, I mean, that makes sense. And he felt bad about it. He turned to see if his wife was banging on the window and. Yeah, there was terror in his face from not just the infected, but leaving his wife behind. It's not like he was being a bitch. He wasn't being a bitch,
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, it's a really powerful scene, and it adds to the intensity of that moment. And then by the time they get to the boat, it's even more intense. It's just, man, that scene is one. It's got to be one of the best scenes of the 2000s period. It has to be. That whole opening for 28 Weeks Later is so good, in my opinion.
I love it too. When he's running and that crane shot, as he's running, you see all the zombies, or whatever, the affected.
It's like a wall behind him,
and it's just it's just very well done. I love it.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And I mean, it's a really well done movie, and kudos for them for making two really good movies that stand next to each other, not one better than the other, like we were saying before.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, they're totally unique to themselves. They're their own movies. Because originally they did think about bringing, Jim and Hannah and Selena back for a sequel.
I'm glad they didn't.
And just follow it. I think it was going to be called 29 Days Later.
I like this better. Yeah. I mean, I would like to see what happened then. Maybe in a third movie. Maybe have both, Imogen Poots and Jim and all them. Speaking of Imogen, real fast. She has the craziest eyes, doesn't she?
That is such an amazing image. I mean, from this, we're like, can we say she's beautiful? Because she's beautiful.
Yeah. She was 17 or 18 at the time, and I'm like, she's pretty. And then I had to look. It said 1989. I was like, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, but I was really happy that she had a career after when I saw her in Green Room and Bavarian. We talked about that last year. It was really good.
Definitely watch Bavarian. I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, she's an excellent actress, gorgeous. Yeah, I mean the cast in both of these films deserve more than they get in some ways. I mean, Jeremy Renner has become a massive star thanks to the Marvel Universe.
Well, this and Hurt Locker got him the role in Thor. I'm saying this helped because he plays a similar role in, I mean, he reminded me of Hawkeye in this movie.
It's almost it's like he's become this go-to sniper soldier type. Because one of my favorite movies he's done is Wind River, and he's a sniper in that.
And he's got the look.
Yeah, he's got that 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, well, because he's Hawkeye. He's got the Hawkeye. Yeah, and he was good in this. Surprisingly I was surprised to see him because that was one of the people I didn't remember. I didn't remember anybody was in this except for Rose Byrne in her American accent. Why do they do that to her? I just want to know. Anyway, real fast, let's talk about. I know we only got a couple minutes. Are we ready to see 28 months later?
Yes.
I am.
Mhm.
Absolutely. They said that they had an idea for the movie in 2019, so hopefully we'll see something maybe by 2023.
I've been waiting for it, and I read that Alex Garland said that that the rights holders, the two people who I guess own the rights to it, are like had a falling out, so that's why, because
Jesus.
they're not going to ever come together on it.
Well, let's fix that.
Yeah, but maybe that's been fixed.
Yeah, I hope so because the story still feels like it was just beginning with 28 weeks later. You see at the end of the movie, you see the Eiffel Tower and the infected right there. It's like, it's going to be worldwide at some point. So let's get this fixed. Let's see 28 months later, maybe 28 years later. I don't. That's too far. That's a long time for a pandemic. But anyway, yeah, this is a great series. I almost want to say you say underappreciated. I think 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, especially, are both underrated. I don't think they get enough credit in the horror community.
So underrated.
Yeah,
because they're just forgotten for some reason. But there's some of the. I think they belong in the top 50 of all time horror films. I mean, at least the first movie. I do. Again, it's my second favorite zombie movie. After Dawn of the Dead.
I'm gonna have to make a list because, again, last time I made a zombie movie list, I think I left these out. But again, it had been a long time since I'd seen them, so I think that changes a little bit after seeing them the last couple nights. Seth, where do they rank for you? Anywhere in the top 10?
I believe I at least had the first one in my top 10 because I think we did our top 10 zombie just for fun on Facebook, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I have a hard time remembering that stuff for some reason. By the by, we did do a John Carpenter episode. I sent it to our chat. Anyway, so I guess we'll wrap it up. What's that?
So, well, we can always do another one.
Yeah, of course. We'll just we'll just do In the Mouth of Madness for 25 hours. We're gonna wrap it up here tonight. I want to thank anybody who stopped out and watched with us. I had fun watching these movies again. It's great revisiting them, especially now knowing that Nate explained why 28 Days Later looks so grainy. Because that really, seriously, that changes everything for me. I'll probably watch it a lot more now. I'm not as a snob as Keith when it comes to video quality. But anyway, next week we're going to try to do at some point, either on Monday or Wednesday, we're going to try to do the top 25 of the 2000s. We're going to do the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, and maybe the 60s. I think there might be 5 movies from the 60s we can do, right? Maybe we'll just do a top 10. Maybe Jared will be back. And then Thursday, we are supposed to do, thanks, Alex, supposed to do a Night of the Creeps commentary. So get your copies of Night of the Creeps ready for Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time, right here on YouTube as well. Anything you want to say, Nate?
Nope.
28 Nates later. Seth, anything you want to say before we go?
Nope.
All right. Have a nice evening.